Mr. Foxman, I appreciate your talk very, very much. My question today deals with an issue that has very much import to the world today, perhaps to prevent some future Holocausts or something like that. The situation in Pakistan. As you have probably been reading, the Taliban has been advancing toward Islamabad, the capital, and there has not been enough opposition. President Obama likes to talk to people like that, which is fine. I know that they have given much money and want to give more. But shouldn't something be done to stop them from getting the atomic bomb that Pakistan has? And in answer to some of your other questions, I must say, we were at Hyde Park and I got a book, FDR and the Holocaust, which answered many of those questions that you had. And when I was 6 years old, I may have had an answer to everything. You know, before the war, I wanted to get Hitler in the crosshairs. I think Roosevelt may have said that too.
Okay, we have a new administration. President Obama in his campaign, and since he's taken office, has indicated his very serious concern, first with Afghanistan and then with Pakistan. One of the first appointments that he's made is Ambassador Richard Holbrooke, giving him the assignment to focus on the issue. There are things happening, things that we know about, other things we don't know about. The United States is acting against the Taliban with the Pakistanis and without the Pakistanis. They may not satisfy your needs. I think at this point, I am satisfied that the United States in this new administration is focusing very seriously on the threat to world peace that may emanate from Afghanistan and Pakistan. Again, it may not satisfy totally what you'd like them to see, but certainly there's an activism, there's a focus, there is a determination to deal with it almost on a priority basis. Because if you take a look at foreign policy initiatives, focus, this administration has focused first on Afghanistan and Pakistan and continues to do so. What they will do, how they will succeed, we all hope will happen sooner rather than later.
Thank you. Could you address, there are places that anti-Semitism exists where there aren't even Jews, or there are very, very few Jews. So can you address how to deal with such a deeply seated anti-Semitism that isn't even against people that exist today? How do you deal with something that deeply rooted?
If I know your answer, if I knew the answer, I'd be out of business, which hopefully I would like to be out of business. Look, there was an essay written in 1894 by a gentleman called Mark Twain. The essay is called Concerning the Jews. If you know the story of Mark Twain, as successful as he was, he got himself into some financial problems, and in order to pay off his debts, he went on a speaking tour throughout Europe. And wherever he went, this is 1894, he encountered anti-Semitism. And he tried to answer the question, why? So he came to one place, and he wrote the essay. You can get it. If you can't find it, send me an email, and I'll send it to you. And then he comes to one place, and it's because the Jews killed Jesus. Okay? But then he comes and finds an atheist who doesn't believe in religion or God. And he's an anti-Semite. And he says, well, if it's not okay. Then he finds people who are ignorant, and they're anti-Semites, and he says, okay, you know, they don't know, they're ignorant, okay. Then he finds out Voltaire was an anti-Semite, that some very brilliant people in history were anti-Semites. And he says, so, and for every reason that he thinks he has, there is another reason which undermines it. His conclusion is that it's greed, it's jealousy. That may be one of the answers. Anti-Semitism is a disease of the non-Jewish mind. It serves a need and a purpose there. Primarily, it's a need to scapegoat. And a need to scapegoat, you don't need Jews in Poland. You don't need Jews in Iran. Because you deal with a conspiracy. You build a conspiracy theory. They're everywhere. Plus, you don't even know where they are. So everybody is a suspected Jew. Look, ironically, after Glasnost and Perestroika, when the Soviet Union finally came down, if you look now at the history of their first elections, the campaigns in many of the former Soviet unions, including the Soviet Union, Russia that is, resolved around the issue, who's Jewish? And they accused their opposition as being Jewish, a hidden Jew, So they weren't Jewish. There were no Jews voting. So you don't need Jews because it's a need to blame somebody, to scapegoat. Look, there's more anti-Semitism in Europe than there are Jews, okay? Although we find, ironically, anti-Semitic incidents of violence, you can measure where there are Jews, there are more incidents because they're Jewish institutions. It also rises during Jewish holidays when there's more coverage and focus on Jews, all of a sudden, etc. There isn't one reason. And again, it's part of the psychosis, if you will, of those who are infected. Hate is here. Where there's life, there's hate. The good news is it's not inherited. It's not in your genes. You're not born being a bigot. You acquire it. The bad news is it's much easier to acquire it than to unlearn it. And so when we deal, the antidote is education until we, look, there was a time when I first started, what are the dreams that you have? Okay, I had a little dream. I had two dreams. One is that, because I started as a scientist, that maybe I'll find the vaccine against hate, and then I'll take care of anti-Semitism. I didn't like science, okay, and whatever. But either we develop that, and after Auschwitz, when you think of it, we reached the moon, we conquered space, we transplant the heart, we've eliminated smallpox, and you name it. If after Auschwitz, all our professors, all our engineers, all our scientists had focused in on the disease, which killed 6 million Jews and 14 million others, wow, maybe. We didn't do it. Is it out there? I don't know. It may be out there. The other dream is now we're into the generation of DNA. And we're learning to map out the human body and the human mind. If my nanny, Bronislava Kurpi, because when you look at the Holocaust, there were people who stood up, the Raoul Wallenbergs, the Bronislava Kurpis, etc. There were people who went the other way, and the majority did nothing, were bystanders, etc. What is it in the DNA of my nanny? It wasn't intellect. Maybe it was faith. But not all of them were religious. Schindler was not a religious man. Raoul Wallenberg was not a religious man. He wasn't motivated by God and faith and Jesus. Okay. What was it? What is it in the DNA? If we can identify what it is in the DNA that makes people stand up to say no, wow. Till then, we're going to struggle with it. And even though you think you may find the answer, as Mark Twain believed he did, at the end, it's not rational. And we sit here with a rational mind trying to find rational reasons for an irrational behavior.